Yeah, you never know. So we're in the woods.
Literally. Well, we
Yep.
are live. Welcome, everyone, to our mastermind for Monday, the 11th of April, 2022. John is here with you. Let me make sure the YouTube isn't going to start barking at me. Oh, it is. Okay, very good. I got that turned off. All right. Um, Good to be here with everyone. Hopefully, you had a great weekend. Some of you had a productive weekend. Some of you had production in other ways. I'm going to talk with you about that here today. We're going to talk about multiple ways of being productive with things that may not seem like, well, they don't necessarily show up on the what is the word I'm looking for, statistics, right? They're maybe not as quantifiable, but they're good investments nonetheless. I see Linda's here, Catherine, Lindsay, one of my favorite people. Janet's here. Good to see Janet and everybody else tuning in via YouTube. We do have a quick announcement that today we're completing Oren Claff's awesome book, Pitch Anything. So if you're here in the book study group, well, obviously everybody who's here is a member, you're also in the book study group, but even for our book study members, which show up when they feel like it, we're going to conclude this book today, and we're going to get on to our next book starting next week, which shall be The Gap and the Gain. Yeah, so that was a user recommended book. I've never read it, so maybe it's great. Maybe not. We'll find out. The Gap and the Gain. So I'll be sending out an email to make sure everybody's got a link for that. Of course, you can just show up on Amazon, grab a Kindle, and do it. Any books that I buy moving forward, it's all digital. I'm not. My wife said, John, you need another bookshelf. I got two of them back there. Plus, I've got in the closet, I've got like audio courses and big things that don't fit on the shelf, like big course packs and lectures and I'm like, you know what? No more bookshelves. Minimalist. You know what? Actually, Janet's got bookshelves that rival mine. She's got like a wall of books. Yeah, that's right. It's very impressive. Right. I haven't even read all these. I've read most of them, but some of them I haven't even read. I feel smarter just seeing them there, but I just haven't read them yet. So what's one that I just haven't been able to get through? Atlas Shrugged. Ayn Rand. My goodness, spit it out, lady. It's like 1,500 pages. But that also kind of segues into our topic for today. Stories sell. So, when reading Oren Claff, reading his book, especially those of you who've been following along, you've been going through the chapters, chapter 7 and 8, the final two chapters, which we're going to be covering tonight. But chapter 7, the entirety of chapter 7 is a story. It's a case study or demonstration, if you will, of how he applies the principles that he talked about in all the subsequent chapters into a $1 billion deal. So, and for those of you who don't know, here's a guy who pitches investment deals, and that's his world, right? And so this would be like a $1 billion project, and they're going to go ahead and get investors. So it's, in some cases like high stakes, sales. All right. For stuff that you can't even see, right? It's an intangible, here's the facts, the figures, here's the profit margins, here's the expenses we're looking at, here's how long the project's going to take, right? So a lot of that is mind-numbing stuff. But how does this guy get the deal, right? In other words, close the investor or close the customer, so to speak. How does he do that without putting them to sleep with spec sheets, facts, figures, all the stuff that, as he calls it, our croc brain, our crocodile brain, the very not evolved, instinctive brain, right? Which is actually, causing us to make decisions, fight or flight, mate, eat, avoid, being prey or whatever, right? So this is all like caveman kind of stuff. Okay. But how does he avoid going down the road of putting people to sleep? And this is something you can do, and I'm going to suggest that you do this, okay, is that he makes it personal. He uses stories. So there's an old saying, facts tell and stories sell. All right. So here's all the facts. And whatever business or whatever endeavor you're endeavoring right now, there's going to be facts involved. some people are immune to facts, which we can see in modern times. Okay, but still, facts exist. All right, I think we can all agree on that. However, the croc brain, or the less evolved, and we could say less analytical part of our personality, which is actually causing the desire or the tension, the fight or flight, and all that kind of stuff. It's much more reactive and much more simple. That's actually a big part of the decision that's being made or not made when we confront anyone in anything, right? Any sort of an opportunity, any sort of a sale, any sort of a business potential transaction, whether we're talking e-commerce and now they're going to potentially click the buy button and exchange some money on their credit card for your item, or we're talking about high stakes billion-dollar investment deals or whatever. People buy from people. And one of the things that we can dive into a lot of detail on is relationship. He actually said that right in the book. Okay. So while you're going to put me to sleep with your spreadsheet on facts and figures, I'm going to be riveted to your story about the perils of investing or e-commerce or whatever the offer is. Okay. But how it affected, the guy at the case study, or the lady who wound up switching into your product, or whatever the offer happens to be. I'm going to be riveted and actually picturing in my mind the scenarios, the perils, the overcoming of the slaying of dragons and all that stuff, right? I'm going to actually engage in some mental pictures when we start talking about stories which involve people. Now, can you do that with, like, do you conjure, like, if I start talking to you about mathematics and spreadsheets and stuff, can you picture, the romantic scenario of, the math and look at the charts. Oh, I see the charts. It's limp. I mean, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. So back to the idea of facts tell and stories sell. Here's the question. Can you use stories with whatever hardcore data, right? Here's data. Nice. Thank you. It's good and right and necessary. But can you commingle that with something that I'm actually interested in? Tell me the story. I want to hear about the triumph of the perils of the overcoming evil. That's what I want to hear about. And now I'm inspired. And now I could see myself maybe putting on that suit of armor and, charging the dragon with you, right? So this is the idea of enrolling people in a vision. If all sales are based on emotion, and they are, okay, and that emotion could be confidence, that could be obviously strong desire, that could be avoiding a loss, right? Here's the peril, but it's all there's an emotional play at play here, right? Well, if that's the case, then can you paint me a picture that would interest me and that would give me, in like the croc brain sense, right, based on the book we've been reading, that would give me some dopamine, right, hope for gain, or some norepinephrine, right? The tension, the fear of loss, right? Would you give me a little bit of a roller coaster ride here? Because I'll tell you what, the cardinal sin of sales and marketing is be boring. Be boring. And look, I know plenty of people who have said, I can't sell. Okay. Probably what they're saying is, I have failed to incorporate stories into the data that I'm attempting to present to my would-be customer. So can we be conscious of that? And can we, because look, has anybody been to a movie? Like any movie ever? Yeah, of course. Hundreds of them. Okay. Why? Because stories sell. There it is. It's right in your face. Stories sell. I saw a movie, kind of a wacky movie too. Stuart, I need to get your input on this. So here's, it was called Moonfall. This was, I guess, a fairly new release. My wife and I had grown-up movie night because my daughter was out at a play date, doing the thing with the other kids. And we were like, oh, we get to watch a grown-up movie. Okay, what the hell is this Moonfall, right? And so there's like, the moon is being attacked by like this artificial intelligence, and it's actually a superstructure, and it's coming, it's going to destroy the planet. And intrigue, pretty far out in terms of the concept. Some good acting, I thought. Some pretty predictable stuff too, but the amount of data, let's say, because there was a character in this story who was like a structure, megastructure expert, and he's a mathematical genius, and he's got his calculations and all this, and everybody ignored the guy. So this is directly to my point. Everybody ignored the guy. He determined that the moon is off course and nobody would listen to him. He's trying to get on the phone with NASA. He's impersonating some doctor at a university so he can get somebody to listen to him. Nobody wants to listen to the guy with his facts and figures. Just another crazy person, right? A lunatic, right? That's where that word comes from, right? The moon, right? Moon crazy, the lunatic, right? Luna. But then, word gets out, and next thing you know, and they're relying on this guy for data, because now they're all interested, because now it's affecting all the people. And then the story unfolds, and there's the divorced couple who they have to work together in different departments of the government, and so it was somewhat predictable on that. But the idea that was conveyed in the story was one of peril and human triumph. That was the story. Here's the almost insurmountable peril, and here's the humans triumphing over that. The data guy, right, with all his facts and figures, was an instrumental part of the story because of what he could bring. But how much of the story do you think was actual, like, here's the audience watching the movie, and now, ladies and gentlemen, take out your calculators because we're going to do this math together with the guy, the character in the story. He's got some math for you all. That never happened in the story. That never happened. Okay. All we knew is that this guy, the data's good. The data's good. Now, how do we know the data's good? Because he proved himself already. He already demonstrated and was verified by third parties. Yes, this data checks out. This is good information. Okay. So he became an asset to the group and, of course, to the story, because he, as a person, was validated. So now we can trust his data because we trust this guy who we all thought was crazy. Okay. Now, how many of you in life have others thought you're off your rocker? Okay. I'm not going to listen to your data because I'm not going to listen to you. I think we've all experienced that. Anybody ever heard the term naysayer? Right. So what if you could substantiate, here's what happened to one of my other customers, right? And now they have success. And here's the peril that, Sally went through, and now she has solved that problem. And now it's about not just having a convincing argument, but a compelling offer, which trumps the convincing argument, because a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Here's stories. It's called proof, by the way, which is the greatest, sales weapon in the world, right? I mean, if you weren't allowed to speak, if you could just show people proof, right? That's sufficient. That's sufficient, right? Because what does it do? I'm not talking about proof in terms of charts per se, although that also substantiates, here's what we're talking about is good and right. But here, let me tell you about what happened with Mandy, right? Mandy had a problem, and now her problem's solved. And it was easy, and now she's frolicking in the tulips, and her life is grand. Okay. Yes, Mandy, I'm describing you and your cat, right? So that makes it real for us. So again, facts tell, stories sell. Here's the question, guys. Whatever you're involved in, can you find stories, success stories, testimonies, things that you experienced? Maybe a personal story where you faced peril, and because of the solutions gained from whatever the data is, whatever the offer is, you can commingle that and wake people up. Again, from the book, Oren talks about the difference between hot cognitions, right? So a cognition would be like a discovery, an aha, right? Now I'm enlightened, right? So it's cognition. So hot, meaning emotional, versus cold cognitions. Oh yes, 2 + 2 = 4. That would be a cold cognition, right? Yes, I've discovered the answer is 4. I'm not jumping up and down. I'm whatever. It's just data. That's why stories sell. That's exactly why. All right. So what we've got to do then, if we're looking to advance our businesses and our offers and the things that we're involved with, what we've got to do then is make it relatable to people. I don't relate to the spreadsheet. Okay. And yes, some people are going to be more analytical and they want to back up their emotional choices with, oh, look, I've made a good choice. Look at the data. Cool, right? You damn well better have that too. But what comes out of your mouth, I was just having this conversation with some of, we've got people going through our CEO Freedom Challenge with Shannon. That's going live at the top of the hour, by the way. But one of the things that we talked about, because I was doing a lecture on sales and how to convert more of that traffic, right? Here's the public, right? They're hitting your website or whatever the traffic is, right? How to convert that into more customers, right? In other words, how to get higher levels of compliance out of the traffic or the potential customers that you're seeking. And one of the things I talked about was something that I've covered in it's in our special events section of our members site. I did 2 sessions on sales mastery. Okay, I need to do a few more too, I think, because I don't think this is something you can just knock out in a couple hours. Having studied this stuff for decades and applied it to the best of my ability. But one of the things I talked about with that group was what I call the Fab Method. Fab, F-A-B. Gail, you look fabulous today. Fab. Okay. So how do you be fabulous? All right. So there's the Fab Method, which is an acronym. F stands for features, A for advantages, B for benefits. Features, advantages, benefits. Okay. So when we think about features, what are we talking about? Quantities, things that show up on specification sheets, facts, good, nice, necessary, but that's not what comes out of our mouths. Okay. That's what is printed on paper and may be used as a sales aid, right? That's another form of proof. Okay. But it's not personal, right? It's not a story. It's just features. All right. It has this and that and that. Nice. Okay, great. Taking it a step higher would be advantages. Okay. So now that we've got our spec sheet, here's our features. Why is it better than the other guys? In its position in the marketplace, why is it an advantage for this customer to go with these features versus anything else that they could do? Not being naive and thinking there's no competition, right? We know there is competition, and so we're going to go ahead and understand for ourselves what the advantages are based on our feature set. So now that makes it more personal. And then B for benefits. Now we're getting into the realm of story. Now we're getting into the answer to the question, why should I care? You get such and such feature so that you can experience these benefits, right? Why should I care? And if you can answer that, well, now we've got something to base our stories on, right? And we can look for ourselves and we can look for other people that we've, customers or people we've worked with or other people in the community or testimonials and whatever. We can relate, here's why these features and advantages produce benefits. Here's the benefit that Sally got. Here's the benefit that Joe got, right? And we can relate that in stories. So what's coming out of our mouths is benefits. We talk in terms of benefits. What we put on paper and documents and sales aids could be, here's facts, right? So now, I'm telling the truth. Look, here's the facts, but let me tell you what happened with Bob. Completely different than trying to shove data down people's throats and putting them to sleep, right? just to relate back to the book, and then we're going to be covering this again tonight. We're going to be concluding Pitch Anything. But the croc brain, according to Oren, right? It wants simplicity. It wants, quick decisions on, friend, foe, fight, flight, eat, mate, run, whatever, right? And it wants to greatly simplify those things that, in our more evolved, brain, the neocortex and whatever the brain parts, according to whoever studies this stuff, right? That's the stuff where we could sit there and be analytical and calculate and things like that. It just wants to simplify that stuff down to the most simple thing it can get, because it's just not fun, right? It's not fast, right? I need simplicity. I need to make decisions fast. So in that way, but once again, this croc brain has no problem with details when it comes to relationships, social interactions, stories, very engaging, because that's instructive, right? Oh, wow, this other crocodile went down that road and faced this peril and then overcame this way, right? That's good. So I can survive with that when I face such peril, right? So relationships, right? Yeah, dig in on that, right? Vivid details. We think in pictures, right? So here's the picture. Here's the screenplay, if you will, that you lay out. And none of that could exist without data. Okay. But back to the old saying, facts tell, stories sell. So I'm looking at this for myself, and I've been working with some people in various businesses on incorporating more story into their pitch, right? Because I could see where some people have suffered with this, thinking, oh, I can't do this, I can't sell, or nobody wants to listen to me, and stuff like that. And being able to kind of, it's almost like copywriting. In fact, you could all do this as an exercise if you want, is think of a scenario that your product or service, solves that problem, and then think of the real world examples where that has actually happened, and then polish it up, put a little lipstick on it, right? Pick some words that are, emotion inducing, right? You think of, let's say there was a collision on the street, cars, right? Car accident. Okay. What's the difference between saying, the two cars, collided versus the two cars smashed into each other, right? So just one word. Okay. Smashed, which is of a different magnitude than, fender bender or something. You see how we got different pictures in our minds. The two cars collided. All right. Whatever that means, right? That means they contacted each other. The two cars had a fender bender. Okay. They pull off to the side of the road, exchange insurance information, and then go about your business. The two cars, smashed into each other. A whole different visual, right? Can you just picture that? Of course you can, right? So then you can kind of put lipstick on it, right? By choosing words that would correlate with different pictures in the mind of the listener. Okay. And when I think about this for myself, I'm thinking, wow, as I hear myself saying this, I probably could do more of this. I tend to be kind of a machine gun, boom, 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 right? And I get my stories out, quickly, but I haven't always been as, some of you are going to disagree with this. No, John, you're a total wordsmith. You come up with so many words, you got a huge vocabulary, but you know what? I could give it more thought. I haven't always come up with, the most impactful things. So there's actually a book. In fact, maybe we'll put it on our reading list. It's called Made to Stick. Shannon's been going through it. And it's a book on copywriting. Okay, Made to Stick, right? So you got the message. Did you retain the message? Like in an advertisement, right? I mean, they've got staffs full of copywriters, right? In Madison Avenue, advertising firms, right? And they're crafting the story with the words. In some cases, they're using written text. In some cases, they're, here's a TV commercial or something, but it's all about what? The mental pictures and inducing the emotion on the part of the recipient, whether it's the viewer, the reader, whatever it happens to be. So words have meaning, and we can use that. to great effect if we're conscious of it and if we're not just burying our face in data. I'm looking at the chat here. Stuart, I can't sell equals I'm having a hard time making meaningful connections with my clients and customers. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Good times. Janet, we are happy we could help you think through this. Yes, Janet. Yes, this was for me. You got to listen in, but this was my mastermind session for me. So thank you, John, for sharing. Oh, you're quite welcome. Yeah. All right, I'll show up again. Yeah, that's good. All right. Anybody else who wants to get in on this conversation? Do you use story? Can you? Of course you can. Okay. Have you thought about this? Do you can you think of some stories right now that you can incorporate into whatever you're doing? Sorry, I got a little bit of pollen or something here. All right, Catherine Edward Gale, Giovanna's here. Let's see. Oh, Stuart's got his microphone hot. What's up there, Stuart?
I got a hot mic for Hot Cognitions.
I'm sure you got stories out on the trail with the llamas and the guy. I mean, we did a whole series here for our members. It's all in the archive, right? Adventures in Mindset, where you related. Yeah, it's all stories.
Love it. Yeah, it's all stories. And no, I appreciate what you're saying. And I think that's why I've been really enjoying this book that you brought to us, Pitch Anything. And I'm looking forward to tonight's book study. Yeah, you're talking about the amygdala versus the neocortex, right? And the croc brain versus the thinking, hot versus cold and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But that concept of using stories, right, and creating intrigue, and put a guy in the jungle, will he get out? And I like how he says, keep the guy in the jungle, right? Don't create the resolution, right? Keep the tension, keep the suspense, keep that intrigue, and build want and desire with all that. I think we connect with stories, especially stories that follow that hero's journey format, right? Because it's archetypical, it speaks to our soul, right? And the different archetypes that we connect to and relate to. And I think that when you tell an effective story like that, it does several things. But first of all, it sort of shifts from that cold facts, figures, data kind of thing, right? It makes it makes you personable, relatable. But for the listener, right, I think that it creates a situation where then your listeners are then putting themselves in the story, right? And so then they become invested in whatever it is that you're pitching or doing. It gives you some sort of a credibility as the storyteller. So I think it does a lot of things in terms of sales, marketing. For me, on the trail, being an effective guide. What I found is that, I could talk about facts and figures and ecology and science and, plant biochemistry and all this kind of stuff all day. But what really enriches people's experience is telling a story about a place and using the natural history, the cultural history of an area to make these places come alive. And then all of a sudden, the people aren't just going for a hike, right? They're having a total experience about it. So I think, I've found that that's been very effective for me as a guide on the trail. As an e-commerce entrepreneur, I found that in my listings, I could just do product details, right? And, this thing is, what's the size, what's the dimensions, what's it made out of, and all that kind of stuff. And to me, that's that cold cognition, boring kind of stuff. You've heard me say over the last few weeks that I've been selling things like statues and artifacts and things like that. And Sure, I put in what's it made out of, okay, this is jade, right? We talked about what kind of jade is it, and people are asking me all these kinds of questions and things like that, which is fine, and that gives me a bit of the expert frame, right, to be able to, share information with people, or the authority frame, right, in the book. But what I found is really effective is to tell a story about the piece, and maybe not, you could tell the history of the piece, because some people are interested, what's the story behind the statue or whatever. But in the listings that I write, I'll tell us, you heard me say, I learned about all the different hand positions of the Buddha, and the hands up and the hands down, and what's he holding. And there's a medicine Buddha with a plant growing out of one hand that's for healing and herbs, and there's abundance hands and all these different kinds of things. And I don't think I've ever seen that before in any other listings of products like that, right? And so I try to incorporate that stuff, because not only does it give me a sense of credibility as the merchant, let's say, that I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about. Oh, hey, that guy, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. I want to buy from that guy, or whatever. Oh, I didn't know that. That's super cool. I'm going to buy this piece, or whatever. Recently, I listed a handmade replica of the Rosetta Stone. John, I'm sure you know what the Rosetta Stone is, right? It's this carved ancient steel, or a stone tablet that was written in hieroglyphics and ancient Egyptian script, and then in ancient Greek. And it's the way that we know how to decipher hieroglyphics. And I found this handmade replica in Egypt of this of the Rosetta Stone, right? And it's only one of a kind of item. It's an artifact replica. I could just say very basic what it is, but to tell the story about the artisans, the craftsmen, and the history of the piece, and blah blah blah, right? That's what makes things come alive for people. And I think no matter what you're selling, right, you want to engage people, you want to evoke imagery, like you're saying, we think in pictures, right? And so once you start engaging that part of the brain, then you start creating different results in the person, right? You're getting that wanting, you're getting that desire. You're talking about Moonfall. I haven't seen it yet, but I will check it out. I don't know if you've heard the concept that that the moon is a construct, and I don't know if they brought that into play in this movie.
Yeah.
But there's some interesting facts about the moon. There's a great book called Who Built the Moon, and it's this study about the moon is the exact distance from the Earth that it needs to be. If the moon was any closer or any farther away from the Earth as it is, the Earth would either spin too fast or too slow. We would not have the axial tilt of the Earth giving us the seasons. So the Earth would be either too hot for half of the year or too cold for half of the year. So you have to have that 23-degree tilt, and the moon is in the exact place to keep the Earth at a speed, at an angle that is perfectly habitable for human life. The concept of the tides being governed by the moon, they say that DNA would never have developed on Earth if it weren't for not only the electricity, but this constant moving. They've tried to reproduce DNA by putting all the ingredients and all the amino acids and all the different things in a jar, and nothing happens to it, right? So again, very interesting stuff about the moon. The last thing I'll say about this is that the moon is 1/400th the distance from the Earth to the sun. And the reason why we can have a full solar eclipse where the moon actually covers the sun exactly is because the moon is in the perfect place. If the moon was any closer or any farther away, you wouldn't have that effect. So yeah, cool stuff. I'll check that movie out. Also, that reminds me of, what's the movie that everybody was talking about recently, Netflix movie, Don't Look Up. Same kind of deal, right? Where the scientist realizes that a comet is heading directly to Earth, and he goes on the news, and I think it's DiCaprio, and he talks about all the facts and figures, and nobody gives a crap, right? Same kind of thing. Cheers, back at you, man.
Beautiful. Thank you, Stuart. Good times. Um, Janet, you got
Yes,
a
hi,
hot mic.
good morning. And a completely different take, but I took a class this weekend from someone I had taken a class with lots of years ago. The opportunities are not frequent, but she told how she was attracted to and got into what she was teaching us. And so I was intrigued, much more engaged. I could see, okay, this is the background. This is why she's saying this. And then I could put pictures in there and grasp the material all that much better. I ended up ordering some of the books that she showed us and talked about. So if you have a product that leads to other products, and you have the whys and wherefores in, as we say, a more emotional, the personal story. This is why I find these valuable. This is, something that leads to another thing. So I just found that I was more, oh, this comes from this kind of background. This is what she saw. This is what something else. So now when she's showing us things, it's starting to make a sense on several levels. It's starting to connect on several levels. And so I really, I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, that was her story, though short for all of the instruction, really did make connections for me. So even if we're talking beyond relationship, beyond emotion, it's making pictures that make connections and lead to other products, if that's what we want to do. So just a thought.
Wow. Very good. Thank you, Janet. Hey, Mandy's here. Mandy, you've got the floor.
Hey, John. Yeah, it follows on from what Stuart and Janet were saying just then. And some of the other programs that I've looked at as well, they're always suggesting stories. Dean Graziosi really pushes the stories, and I think it is really, really important. And I think in my new business, any of the presentations I do need to involve stories. One, because mine is like lots of numbers, and therefore it could get very boring if I don't have stories in it. And I think it would be stories about me to get my credibility, to show that I'm authentic, I'm approachable, and then also understanding the story of the people that I'm looking to be my clients, because it's understanding how they've got from here to here, and how I can actually help them. And I think stories are definitely a way to go. And Pitch Anything is now on Audible. It came on Audible 2 weeks ago, so you might actually look at it now in book club. I'll have a look. I've got it and I'll see what it's like.
Okay. I actually have the audio book. I've had it for years. So I don't know if it was Audible specifically, but I don't know. I've been listening to the audio book as well.
Yeah,
Read
and
by
you
the
just
author.
found it come up. Yeah, about 2 weeks
Okay.
ago.
Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mandy. This whole idea, as Stuart was talking, and then Janet, and then Mandy, I was thinking of, you guys, I don't know, any of you are into like fine art, like really expensive art. I don't own much of it. I've got like 2 pieces of it. Most of the stuff I've got is more utilitarian. Okay. But there was anybody familiar with a guy named Bill Worrell out of Texas? He's a sculptor. And he, we're on the topic of stories now. Okay. So I was in this art gallery in Sedona, and I saw like Worrell sculptures. And I was like, oh my goodness. And the woman came over to sell it to me. And she said, are you familiar with Worrell? No. Well, he was in his canoe. Here's the story, okay, going through the caves, right, in Texas, and the caves, the water went under the cave, and he found the drawings from the natives of the shaman figures with like antler heads and their hands like this, and they're holding, and the crow flies over and all that, and I'm like, wow. And he said, and he was inspired, and he just started making the stuff out of bronze. And so now, here's the ones, and this one's limited to 200 pieces, and this one here, right? So I bought 2 of them for $4,000 each, right? It's bronze sculptures. Okay, I since sold one, but I do still have one. In fact, it's the first thing you see when you walk through the front entrance of my house. So if you guys you've never seen a whorl, hold on a second here. Can you guys still hear me? I just pulled the plug on my electronics.
Yeah, how do you spell his name?
Worrell. Whorl. Okay. So you ready? You walk through the front door and bam. That's whorl.
Oh,
Yeah. So does that
Wow.
mean something to you? I don't know. It meant something to me, right?
yeah.
And when I saw it, I was like, oh man, that's just talking to me, right? And then the story behind, how he, discovered the ancient drawings and inside the cave and whatever, that's cool. But even in that world, or probably even especially in that world where we're talking about something so subjective, art, right? I mean, there's other art in the gallery, which it's not visually pleasing to me. But perhaps even if there was like a story behind it, maybe maybe I'd be more interested. I don't know. Now, again, I'm not like an art guy, but that whorl piece, I had to have it. Right here, take my money. Right. So I guess the punchline is, even with something that there's no facts and figures on that. I didn't ask Stuart. I didn't ask what kind of bronze, what temperature was the bronze when he cast the thing, right? But the canoe, and he selects the rock. You saw it was mounted on a stone, right? Whorl personally selects the rock to accompany the sculpture. All right, there you go. Give me $4,000. Actually, I'm guessing it's worth more now. It's been 20 years since I bought that. Well, when he's dead, I don't know. Is Whorl still alive? We'll find out. But we're just going to hang on to that thing until he dies, and then, man, I'm going to cash it. Anyway, love you guys. Have an awesome day. I'm going to be back here at 9 p.m. for the triumphant conclusion of Pitch Anything. And remember, our next book, which you'll want to go ahead and grab, is The Gap and the Game. Dan Sullivan and Benjamin, I can't remember Benjamin's last name. All right. Everybody good?